last week, I have discussed the leasing and installment companies, and today's topic is credit card companies. So sometimes many people just think that credit card companies are companies that engage in transactions. So these are the payment. These companies are providing payment services, but fundamentally, if you look at into the further their activities, they are actually lending institutions. So I'd like to emphasize their roles in the economy. So the credit card is a financial service or an instrument that guarantees a user's payment after a certain period. So credit card is the functionality of the credit card relies totally on your credit, because if you cannot pay it back later, then these services may fail. So the credit card will be only provided to those who can pay the money later at some point. And from the perspective of the shop owners or the merchandisers, there is a risk because they are not receiving cash and they are allowing for some time for the consumers to give the money. So this risk will be alleviated because these will be guaranteed by the certain financial institutions, namely the credit card companies. So there are three major activities that a credit card company needs to perform. First, it needs to make sure that the payments are settled after that. And then before that, they also need to issue the credit cards to the consumers. And during that process, they need to check their credibility and need to decide whether these credit card company would allow the credit card or not. And finally, they also need to recruit the member retailers or the merchandisers so that your credit card users can visit anywhere and to use your own credit card. And let me briefly tell you about the history of the credit cards. So it all began in 1950 when a U.S. businessman, Frank McNamara, visited a restaurant near his hotel. So on the evening, he wanted to have a nice dinner, so he went out, but unfortunately, he forgot to bring his wallet. And then after he finished eating, then he wanted to find out his wallet, but there was no money inside his pocket. So he asked for permission that he would go to the hotel room again and going to take his wallet and come back. And there was a hesitation, but thankfully the restaurant owner allowed it. And there comes a bright idea that maybe this can be a business, because he was a very successful businessman. So Frank McNamara he founded a club named the Diners Club. So because it all began with the dining, the name was also Diners Club, the club who wants to eat fine dishes. And then he recruited the restaurants in New York and some fancy cities, and there he also invited using his personal connections, social ties, some wealthy individuals. So this club was only by invitation at first. So if Frank McNamara believes that this guy has ability to pay a certain money later, he was invited into the Diners Club and he can use this credit card. And the Diners Club's role is to ensure that these club members can go anywhere without their wallets, and then later they will calculate how much money each individual owes, and they are going to ask for the money from these wealthy individuals, and they are going to charge it, and then they are going to receive it, and later they are going to visit restaurants and they are going to pay the money for their services. And this was very successful. And in 1958, American Express also started a very similar service. So American Express is actually it started with a kind of this the original business that American Express had is a touring company. So when some people wanted to go visit some places, like French people go to the United States, or when or the United States people go to the Europe, and they help managing the tours and arranging their buses and airplanes and every schedules. And they also thought very similar idea to the Frank McNamara's Diners Club, because the tourists also may need some extra money, but they may not have enough cash. So they also arranged a certain businesses that at later point of time these tourists can pay the money they owe later. And in the same year, banks also entered this industry. So the first bank who engaged in this credit card business is the Bank of America, which also exists today, and they founded Visa. And Bank of America is one of the largest commercial banks in the United States, and there are other competitors. So the competitors wanted to compete with the Bank of America in these new businesses, so they started MasterCard. So the three major credit card companies existing today globally are Visa, MasterCard, and I forgot the name. So they are competing still at this moment. And let me talk about the history in Korea. So the first credit card was issued in 1978, and the first commercial bank who connected their banking account with this credit card is the KEB, which is Korean Exchange Bank, which is later acquired by Hana Bank. So they connected their banking accounts with the Visa's network, and they started their first credit card service in Korea. And later, Gummin Bank had a partnership with the MasterCard, and they started the credit card business in Korea. And other banks in Korea made their own union. So they started the BC card using the KT, Korean Telecommunication Company's network, and they established the BC card, which is a third-party credit card company. So the core idea in the credit card is also the lending, because it is again similar to the borrowing and lending activities. So let's say we have a consumer, and let's say he wants to have a good meal on a fancy restaurant, but unfortunately he does not have sufficient cash. Then what he can do is he can borrow from a bank and go to the restaurant and eat some meal, and later when he gets his salary back, then he can pay the money back to the bank. So this is the typical lending process. But another way of doing this is that instead of the bank, we have credit card company. And instead of that consumer, the credit card company will pay to the restaurant. Today, and later when the consumer gets the salary, and it will pay the money back to the credit card company. So again, the only difference is that bank is replaced by the credit card company, and therefore this transaction is actually the lending and the borrowing. So consumer is earning a 1 month period to pay the money back to the financial institutions, and therefore the credit card companies are classified as lending institutions. And let me talk about some of the details in the Korean context. So, again, you need to understand the history of Korea. So in 1997, we had the Asian financial crisis, and a lot of businesses collapsed, and many individuals claimed their personal bankruptcies, and there was the first regime change between the opposition party and the ruling party in Korea. So, former President Kim Dae-jung, he was one of the first politicians from the opposition party who took the presidential office. And when he was elected, the major objective of this new administration is to survive from this huge Asian financial crisis. So he wanted to make sure that the economy bounced back. And one of the policies that they can do was about adopting a lot of credit cards in our economy. So before these policies promoting the credit card companies, many transactions in reality, everyday life, was conducted by using the cash, the bills and the coins. And at that time, the problem for the government was that a lot of small and medium-sized merchandisers, they are not going to report their annual incomes to the government to avoid taxations. So they do not record the transactions publicly, and they just use only cash. So there was a dark economy in our country. And when we adopt the credit card usage transactions, every transactions will be recorded by the credit card company. So the government, the only thing that the government needs to do is just to go to the credit card company and ask for the transaction records, and they can get the detailed information about how much money each merchandise make. So it helped collecting income taxes from small size and medium enterprises. And second, the credit card allows consumers not just pay right now, but allow some delay in their transactions. So even if they do not have sufficient cash right now, they can utilize their credit cards and they can consume. So it boosts the consumption among the individuals. So there will be a lot of sales, and many products will be sold, a lot of services provided, so the companies will become richer, and maybe they are going to hire new employees, and it will help to rebuild our economy. So because of these two goals, two aims, the Kim Dae-jung administration fostered the credit card usages in Korea. But the problem was that now the credit cards are so much favored that there is a harsh competition among the credit card companies, and that resulted in a drawback. So there is a statistics as of 2001 that on average, an individual, a person, held 4.6 credit cards. So I if I were a adult at the time, and I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars, and you would also have 5 cars and multiply by the population of the Korea. So there were a bunch of abundant credit card issues, and this is because credit card companies are competing each other. So credit card, say LG credit card allow me an issue of a new credit card, and I can also get another credit card from maybe say Samsung card, and I can also get another card from the Visa, MasterCard, so I can choose whatever I want because I have a lot of credit cards. And that created a trouble in our country. So soon, some people started to fail to pay the money back to the credit card companies. So, and then there was a so-called revolving phenomenon. So here in this context, the revolving is a bad thing. So this is something like this. So there is a single consumer, and let's say his salary, usually monthly salary, is two 3 million Korean won, and he has 3 different credit cards from different companies. So he has credit card A and another credit card B and C, and the credit card A charges the payment from the consumer by every 25th of every month. But the problem is he used a lot of credit cards already. So although he received this salary today, the amount of payment that he needs to give to the credit card is already exceeding it. Let's say 4 million Korean won. But he doesn't have that amount of money right now. What he do is he just use the second credit card, and he goes to the ATM, the automated teller machine, and he borrows another 1 million Korean won from the credit card's number B. And using the money and with his own salary, he pays the money back to the credit card A. And then the credit card B's due will come at each 10th every month. And then what he do to pay the money back, again, he visit credit card number C. And there he borrows, and he used the proceed to pay for the credit card B. And when the due comes for credit card C, he again borrow from credit card A, and it goes on. So this revolving phenomenon was very prevalent among Korean individuals at the time, because Korea just 5 years ago they suffered from a huge crisis, so they didn't have enough savings, but the governments are boosting the consumption, so they are likely to spend more and more, but their salaries are limited, so they are borrowing more and more. So the household borrowings increases and the delinquency increases. And people started to file for the bankruptcy in the court, claiming that I cannot continue, I cannot pay the money to the credit card companies. And as a result, they suffer, and these credit card companies also suffer. So there was a huge collapse in this market. So at the time, the LG card, which is a subsidiary of the LG group, that was a rank number 1 in Korean credit card market, and it claimed bankruptcy, and later it was acquired by Shinhan Bank. So LG is traditionally a competitor of Samsung Group, and although Samsung maintains a lot of financial companies inside the group, such as Samsung Card, Samsung Insurance, and Samsung Securities, LG Group does not have financial institutions inside the group because they failed at this moment. So they just lost all financial subsidiaries because they suffered a lot from this credit card crisis. And also, as I mentioned, one of the leaders in the banks, among the banks, who was engaging in the credit card market was Korean Exchange Bank, KEB, and the partner was the Visa. And then it also triggered the Korean Exchange Bank's bankruptcy. So it was acquired by Hana Bank, and that was a shock to Korean people because Korean Exchange Bank was established by the government, and even government-sponsored bank can fail. This was a very striking news to Korean individuals. So we have several lessons from this crisis. First, for the rest of the industries, for example, the smartphone industries, semiconductor industries, pharmaceutical industries, in these usual industries, competition is better for the consumers because when there are competitions more and more, the prices for the products and services will be lowered, and it will help the consumers to enjoy some benefits. But there is a contradictory fact in the financial area. So when financial institutions are engaging in too much competition, that will actually harm the consumers. And also, another thing that we should remember from the perspective of the financial institutions is that consumers are not rational. So if you just look at these revolving phenomena, it is irrational. If you don't have money to pay back later, then you should stop consumption. However, this does not work in reality because they just follow their feelings. So sometimes they may result in irrational decision-making process, and that will threat the entire system. So therefore, it is necessary to provide some regulatory frameworks to protect these consumers from potential risk that they cannot understand. And finally, it may have been possible to prevent this revolving if these credit card companies were communicating each other. Maybe the credit card A can alarm credit card B that this consumer is already borrowing too much from our one, so you should stop giving the credit card to them. And then this crisis would happened. However, they failed because they were competing each other, so they didn't want to share any information about the credit quality of those consumers. So the lessons led us to the establishment of a new center, namely Korea Credit Bureau. So KCB, the reason of this company's existence is to ensure that financial institutions can share their information from the authorized third-party supervision. So nowadays, whenever you apply for a credit card in any of the credit card companies, then this information will be delivered to Korea Credit Bureau. So the target credit card company can get the information how many credit cards he already has, and what is his salary, and what is the status of the bank's accounts of that consumer. And by accessing this information, the credit card company can make a more rational decision based on sufficient information. And furthermore, one thing is that in Korea, legally, it is possible to make a new credit card company. However, the government is not allowing any of the financial institutions to enter the market from that moment. So there is a limited competition. So, and there is no new entrant in this market because the government are worrying about repeating the crisis again. And I'm going to talk about the credit card companies' opinions about the fintech at the later point of our lecture when we discuss the fintech industry, because the fintech, one of the issues that fintechs are interested in is also the payments which are crossing the boundaries of the credit card industry. So we are going to have a chance to discuss about the fintech and its influence on the credit card industry later.